terrestrials now. Now, willow grubs, I think everybody here has used a willow grub at one time or another. And guess how hard they are to tie? If you're going to pay $2.50 for one of those, anybody could tie a willow grub.
What's the material?
It's just a foam cylinder. That's all it is. That's all it is. Now, terrestrials, gum beetles. Again, people don't realise on the mainland, I took all the photographs here on the Gungahlin. They vary a little bit and a couple of imitations there.
Hey Dave,
Do you know any fishing when you go fishing, mate? Do you do any fishing when you go fishing?
I've had to show you some photographs about that, in fact, because I was down at a ravine with Eugene Bison. There was a heat wave, and we couldn't do anything but swim. And so we swam and caught insects and photographed.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of these were taken during a heat wave down at ravine at that Lobbs Hole, the bottom there.
have you got a photo of the coffee bean fly?
It's coming up, John. So here's a Tassie gum beetle. In fact, I got an encouragement award in Fly Life magazine for that one, for a macro shot. And here they are, you can see them. And again, they just accumulate all around you around the tea tree. The wind blows and they take off all over the water. And here at Lake Augusta, as you can see, they were just banked up, and it didn't. The aroma was a little bit on the nose, I have to say, with decomposing gum beetles. This is why. Name escapes me, but he always says you've got to put a little tag, a little bit of flash on your beetles, because it's got to be look at me, because if they're among this lot on the surface of the water, there's got to be a look at me quality to it. So it's a little tag or a little bit of flash. And this fly, I also participate in fly untying. Usually if I buy a fly, I untie it and photograph the steps as I untie it, because I quite like that pattern. And then I sort of added legs. So yes, it's fairly accurate, but it's also very fishable. 100% foam, it floats like a cork, all of those things.
Almost looks like a turtle.
And yes, I'm desperate to catch a fly on a trout on a coffee bean. And I have found that to float the damn thing, you should have two hackles, one fore and one aft. Okay. We're well aware of grasshoppers.
20 years and I was going to say catch a fish with it.
We're well aware of grasshoppers, of course. Ever since the advent of, or the use of foam, we never used to use foam. We never used to use deer hair, for example. But the combinations of deer hair and foam now make our tying in hoppers very easy, very easy.
What did you use before deer hair?
Oh, look, they were frightfully British.
Right.
Lot of tippets, orange tippets, used everywhere for legs and wings and what have you. Frightfully British. But they didn't look like a hopper at all. It just had a standard head. But at least with these, it's possible to build up bullet heads, a bit of bulk. Because look at the natural, it's got a round head. It's a bulky thing. And so we imitate, usually with a deer hair head, either a bullet where you pull it back or a trimmed head. Terrestrial still, bit of a story here. These appeared up on the Gungahlin again in 1 year. They love blue. Who was talking about blue? They just love blue. They filled our shower recess. It's a little, only about an inch and a bit long. And I made up an imitation of that one. You see all foam with photocopy wings from Tywell in those days. And I have to say, I caught fish on it. It actually worked. I was quite surprised. It actually worked because the wings are quite stiff and what have you, but it actually worked. So Peter Louvre at the time, he said, oh, you should do an article for Fly Life magazine with that. And I thought, well, I better find out what this thing is. So I sent it off to a worldwide cicada expert who happens to be here in Sydney, Dr. Max Moles, and he said, it's a new species.
Wow.
And I hereby name it Violetta subalpina. So there you go.
Didn't you get your name in it?
No, because they have a classification system of naming. Yeah, it would have been nice to have, you know, Davo's cicada or something. Terrestrial still, right? Now we're moving towards, you know, bass bugs, etc. And again, you know, Dahlberger was the original one, of course. But you're able to see here the stacking and the packing of deer hair and a frog. There's an Alan Barber frog, it's a beauty. Now this one was the one I was using up on the Hawkesbury, just the size of the tip of your finger, tip of your little finger. And as with a popper, of course, it's concave at the head, and when you strip it, generally pops. It gives you that little burst of water. But as you can see, there's a whole host of bass bugs and things that we imitate. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to tie a simple deer hair hopper, or we give this one a miss and move on. Look, I'm going to move on because I'm thinking of time.
Never throw away a pair of thongs.
Snails.
Oh.
Now these were the stomach contents of a trout on a Rundle Park dam. They used to almost rattle with snails there. That's how the snail looks. And when we try to imitate a snail, and I noticed, who was talking about snail imitations. I saw that on Facebook, working away at it. I was twisting normal packing foam here to get a twist into it, so it's water absorbent. There's a bit of a story to this because all the snails would come out at once over the water on a Rundle Park dam, and guys would argue, oh, they're migrating or they're feeding or whatever it is, you know. And I was on a plane trip returning from Singapore in those days, and there was this huge guy beside me taking up the seat and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, it turns out he was a professor from a university in Stuttgart, and he got his PhD from studying freshwater snails. So ended up having a great trip in discussing snails with this guy, and he said, no, they're crawling around under the meniscus, feeding on slime and stuff. Yeah, under the surface. Yeah. So the key here is to get this thing to float just under the surface. And so I was experimenting with a cup of water in front of me, different weighted hooks, different foams, and getting it a twist, just to get that thing, plonk it into the water and watch it just come up and sit under the meniscus. And that was a sort of bit of a fly tying afternoon for me once to try and get that right. And then, of course, we have our favourites, imitating fish eggs. And I remember when we weren't using these at all. In fact, it was regarded as, you know, very nasty to use these. Very nasty. They came out of New Zealand. It used to be called a glowbug. And in Australia, they were illegal. They weren't a fly unless they had eyes. So we added the eyes, and then I called them Muppet. Remember we used to call them Muppet? And so there's a couple of imitations here of hatching alidins. And here, in the club, at one stage over the years, guys would say, what did you catch on them? An egg-sucking leech. So during a spawning run, you'll find an egg-sucking leech will do a good job too. Finally, we get to the salt water. Here we come. Here we go. Salt, I believe, is pretty straightforward. It's becoming more complex over the years. But essentially, we're dealing with prawns and shrimps, we're dealing with bait fish, we're dealing with crabs, and we're dealing with squid. Anything I've left out there? That's essentially the food groups. Just
The lure guys are fishing mussel flies now for breed.
Mussel flies?
No, mussel lures. I haven't seen a mussel fly yet.
But I love the innovation with the flexo crabs. In fact, Alan, I think that's one of yours. Look, it's still, the line is still tied onto it out of your box. Yes. And here we have it, folks, the well-researched Brian Henderson salt water flea that he uses on Smith's Lake and what have you. Tied by Brian. I double-checked the materials, etc., and he told me I was spot on. So there it is. You're able to see it's a pretty good imitation of the natural.
So is that a Daphnia? It looks like a Daphnia.
It's like a little scuddy thing. And Brian says that they go across the bottom and then they dig in. He said, and so if you're retrieving, it's and then stop.
Okay. What sort of size are they?
Well, he ties it on about a 14 or a 16. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
If you put a hot bead on the front, it works much better. But as Dave said, it's sort of skip, pick up, roll cast, skip.
Yeah. But there it is. You probably heard about it with people talking about it, and I thought I'm not going to part ways with Brian without one.
If you're up at Smith's Lake.
Now, I was going to tie a crazy Charlie here. We're going to say the first fly you need to tie in the salt water world is a crazy Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
Because it sort of replicates all sorts of things. Prawns, small fish, and what have